So often, people think that they are excellent communicators and they're excellent listeners. And they will say, well, you could really help my team, but I don't really need you. And there's this misconception we have. There's actually a name for it. It's called the Dunning-Kruger effect. But with social skills like listening and like communication, we overestimate our abilities and underestimate everybody around us, their abilities. And so a lot of people don't think that what I offer is something for them. So that makes sales a little bit more challenging, as you might imagine. And that's why putting things within specific context makes people go, oh, yeah, I don't know how to talk to my dad anymore now that he's got dementia. Maybe
Yeah.
I could use your course.
Welcome to Mastering the Numbers. I'm your host, Joe Mallo. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Mastering the Numbers. I am Joe Mallo with the Lead Edge Consulting Group, powered by Focal Point Business and Executive Coaching. My guest today is Laura Janusik. She is CEO of Listening to Change. Laura, thank you very, very much for taking part in my interview series.
Oh, my pleasure to be here, Joe. Thanks for asking me.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you help the audience? Tell them a little bit about listening to change, if you don't mind.
I certainly can. So, Joe, when you go into a meeting with one or two or three other people and you think it's a great meeting and everybody understands what they're supposed to be doing and you're all aligned and ready to go and hit the ground running, and you do. And then a few days later, you overhear somebody who was in the meeting talking about a decision that was made or a direction that was agreed upon. And you're thinking, I don't recall that conversation at all. Well, that's called miscommunication. And as a communication coach, consultant, and trainer, I help make sure that individuals and teams align through the power of communication so they don't have that miscommunication anymore.
I think I've been in a number of those meetings over the last 28, 29 years. So
Yeah.
I think it's a good thing. So we were talking a little bit earlier, and I know you have a specific area of individuals that you work with, and you're also getting ready to start a course for caregivers. Can you tell the audience more about that?
I can. I'm really excited about that. So thanks for asking. My personal care journey, I have been a caregiver for my mother now for about 5 years. She was diagnosed with early dementia probably about 6, 7 years ago. And as someone who doesn't have necessarily a background in healthcare, being thrust into the primary caregiver role is a little bit no, it's a lot challenging. It is a lot challenging because what I recognized it felt like was I wasn't only managing my own life, but I was managing my mother's life too. She currently is in a care facility now, and she is in what they would call advanced dementia. So she's gone from mild dementia through medium through advanced dementia. And one of the things that I know was a little bit frustrating for me, but not as frustrating for other caregivers of those with cognitive decline, is how do you communicate with them? Because the communication totally changes. And so I've developed a course that I'm getting ready to launch specifically for caregivers on how to develop a meaningful relationship with those with cognitive decline, because we can no longer communicate the way that we've done for the last 30, 40, 50, 60 years. We have to change the way that we communicate.
Yeah, as a family, my family, we dealt with this with the same thing. The family member with dementia, and you have to completely change how you speak to them, or else they can get very upset
Yes.
and off kilter. So I agree. I think it's going to be a good course. So tell the audience what prompted you to start your own business in this area. Was it just what you were going through with your mother, or was it something else?
Oh, not at all. I was actually a college professor for about 20 years. I was a professor at Rockhurst University, a small liberal arts college, and a communication professor within the business school. And I have been passionate about listening for over 25 years and am a published international listening scholar. I know people think people really study listening. Yes, we do study listening, and we do a lot of experiments and studies on listening. So I recognize the importance of any relationship. The quality of any relationship is dependent upon the quality of listening. And so, after teaching for a little bit over 20 years, I decided that I wanted to take this message of listening out to a wider audience because we really need it. Our relationships, I think, in the United States and I will say other countries as well, but primarily the United States, they have been impacted a lot through technology. And so every generation will say, I don't understand those kids anymore. And it's all because of the influences that we have in communication and the fact that it doesn't work the same way that it worked for us when we were children. So I wanted to help people understand that and help people develop those better relationships, whether it's a personal relationship or a professional relationship, because at the end of the day, that's what we have. We've got relationships.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's a lot of individuals out there, including myself, that could use additional education on listening. So, just from being in business myself for a long time. So, once you started up your business, what would have been some of the biggest struggles or challenges that you had to overcome?
For me personally, um, I think it was the curse of knowledge to begin with, because I know so much about communication and listening. I assume that other people know so much about it too. And what I have to offer isn't necessarily going to be of value to them. But the more that I have been doing this, the more I recognize that it's just the small tweaks that make the huge differences. And that's where people really need to begin. They don't care about the theories and all of those studies and all of those things that, as an academic, I used to love. They really just want to know what to say to make this relationship work.
So as a communicator, you really have to be able to help them understand something that might be more complicated to understand it very simply and be able to
Yes.
implement it.
Yes, absolutely. And I think I think the second thing is that whole translation aspect, which I think you were getting at as well, Joe. And I'm sure a lot of other small business owners have figured this out because we know what we're talking about. We don't always listen as well to the client or the potential client as we need to. And so really honing what it is they want, recognizing that what we have can help solve that problem, but also being adaptable enough to call it something different, to call it what they've been calling it,
Yeah.
because then it's going to be a perfect match.
Yeah. The one thing I've learned over the years is by improving communication with not people that are just like you, but more importantly, people that have personalities not like you, can make drastic improvements in your skills and in your work performance in your career. So I agree. Um, so growing your business, is there anything that you would have done differently? Not a different career, but would you have done anything different starting the business?
Yes, absolutely. I would have spent more money to make more money. In the beginning, being a solopreneur and not having a lot of money, I found myself trying to do everything, trying to do the marketing, trying to do the website, trying to do the sales, just because as a solopreneur, you're responsible for everything. And it took me a couple of years to realize that I really am not good at marketing. I may be in communication, but marketing is a totally different game. And so hiring people to be able to help with that is so important. So I think I would have spent more money up front than I did.
Yeah. That's something we learn the hard way
Mhm.
sometimes. So for everybody out there that's going to see this podcast, know that I'm not the one that's going to make it all nice. I have a marketing team as well. They make it look great for us. So,
Mhm.
um, so when you were sitting around talking to your friends, colleagues, associates, what are some common misconceptions that they have about business owners
About business owners in general,
in general?
that we have a really easy life because we can get up and go to the office late and we can leave the office early and we have lots of money flowing in. And it's the exact opposite. I definitely work as long, if not longer, hours than I did in academia, and the money does not flow in. Yes, it does not.
I think that's the most common misconception that I hear from
Mhm.
everybody. So you just brought up working longer hours than you did when you were in academia. Um, how do you balance this new professional life with your personal life?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's something that I have really been committed to for a long, long time, but not always in action, if that makes sense, right? In
Right.
idea, I want to have this personal balance, but it doesn't always work. But a couple of the things that I do now is I recognize what my schedule is, and I am not a morning person. If you asked my mom years ago, she would have told you that as a child, I used to stay up until 2 o'clock in the morning. And then when she had to wake me up at 5 to get me to the sitter so she could go to work, that did not work well for me as an infant. And that's still my schedule, Joe. I'm a night owl. I still like to work later into the evening.
Yeah.
But when you're in relationships, you can't necessarily do that. So, what I try to do, working out is very important to me. I get up in the morning, I work out, and then I'm to the office, and I have a home office. So, I'm to my office by 11 o'clock at the absolute latest. And then I do try to knock off by 7 p.m. every day. And when I leave the office, I shut the door. And that's been a really important element for me because if I could see inside the office, I might sneak in and go do something. But if the door is shut, I know that it's not work time anymore, it's home time.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes I walk past my office door and I think, "Oh, maybe there's something I need to do."
Yeah.
So you open it up and you sneak in there at 10 or 11
Yeah.
o'clock at night and
Yep.
get some work done. So I've been there as well. Do you have a support team that keeps you on track? And if you do, how important have they been to the growth of your career?
I do not necessarily have a team. I have one virtual assistant, and she has been wonderful for me. She has skills that I don't have, so that is a really important element for me. She is not afraid of technology at all, so I can give her anything that is technologically oriented, and she jumps on it right away with no fear. And I love that about her. So that is somebody that I really rely on is my virtual assistant. And this year I am getting ready to hire a copywriter. Yay. So I don't have to worry about all of that marketing stuff anymore
Yeah,
because it's not my strength at all. And it's not my VA's strength either. So
yeah,
we're going to get
yeah,
those people who just know how to write and market.
yeah. And let them keep you on track.
Yep.
And you can focus on the other things that matter.
Yeah.
So I agree. So how do you personally stay motivated and focused every day? Working the longer hours to continue to grow your business.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think this is just me, and I feel guilty about saying this in many ways, but I have such a passion for helping people. And so it doesn't feel like work to me when I can help other people. And I I just love the smile that gets on people's faces and how their eyes light up and they recognize that communicating with others can be so much simpler than they thought. I love those moments and I live for those moments. And even when I was in education, I never thought of retiring. I love working because it doesn't feel like work. It feels like, I can't say it feels like play, right? Because it's not like being at the ocean and swimming in the ocean. It's not that kind of play. But I just enjoy what I do.
Yeah, that's important. I mean, you can't grow, you can't become better if you don't enjoy it.
Yeah.
It's impossible if you don't enjoy it. So, are there a lot of, I shouldn't say a lot, but are there other individuals like yourselves out there also teaching communication, or are there very, very few?
Both, both. I think one of the challenges that we in communication have is specifically with my corporate clients. Those are harder to get, and you would think that they would be easier to get, but so often people think that they are excellent communicators and they're excellent listeners, and they will say, well, you could really help my team, but I don't really need you. And there's this misconception we have. There's actually a name for it. It's called the Dunning-Kruger effect. But with social skills like listening and like communication, we overestimate our abilities and underestimate everybody around us, their abilities. And so a lot of people don't think that what I offer is something for them. So that makes sales a little bit more challenging, as you might imagine. And that's why putting things within specific context makes people go, oh, yeah, I don't know how to talk to my dad anymore now that he's got dementia. Maybe
Yeah.
I could use your course. Or, oh, I'm not sure if I mentioned the other project that I'm currently working on. I'm writing a book that's called How to Manage Conflict Within the Context of Midwest Nice and Other Conflict Avoidant Cultures, because so many people are afraid of conflict because they've not learned how to do conflict. And that's one of those generational changes that we're seeing as well.
Is there a lot of innovation in your industry or in your career,
That's
or are you just are you relying on things that you've learned, you know, 20, 30 years ago?
that's a really interesting question. I would say that it's both, right? Because the fact that we use English, you and I use English to communicate, you and I may feel more comfortable doing it face to face, but now we have technology to send those words over different channels, right? So it changes in how we send things. And also, it changes based on our primary caregivers and what our primary caregivers uh, help us to value and not to value. And so we can look back at different generations and the way that children were raised caused them to either be really big team people, right? Because they were involved in a lot of team sports when they were younger, or don't talk to strangers, right? So they are afraid to talk to people that they don't know. Or with technology, with these last 20 or so years, communicate over the telephone through text or short videos, but
Yeah.
don't talk face to face to people. So I think it's a little bit of both. What we do doesn't change, but how we do it changes.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, I spent my entire career being face to face on a
Mhm.
car, on a plane, in somebody else's office. And with the pandemic, it changed that a lot. I spent 2 years doing exactly what we're doing, on a
Mhm.
on a Zoom call, and that was very frustrating for me because I like to get up and get out of the house and go see people in their own environment. So you definitely have to adapt.
Mhm. Yeah.
For sure. What do you find most challenging about your industry? from individuals that may think about doing what you do?
I think this is a mistake that I made early on, right? And it's something that we talked about a little bit. The fact that every company and every individual in their life will have challenges with communication and listening, right? So it is a skill that can help everyone, and we can all improve in it. And so trying to be everything to everyone and not choosing a niche early on,
Right.
I think that that probably is something that hurt me and didn't help me grow as fast as I could. But 2 years ago, when I started niching, as they call it, that's when I started getting more clients. And not only the clients that I defined within my niche, but other clients as well. So it's an interesting, odd paradox that occurs.
It really is. I've always found it interesting just because as you shrink the number of people that could potentially be clients, you find more.
Yeah,
And it's just, I've always found that to be interesting.
yeah.
But yeah, no, I'll agree there. So where do you see your business in the next 12 to 36 months?
12 to 36 months. The caregivers course, I would like to be able to launch quarterly because I think that one is really going to help a lot of people. And I will also be creating an advanced course then for that population. I hope, no, not I hope, I will have my book published by the end of 2025, and I can see doing programs in private industry at that point in time, either for small companies or large Fortune 100 companies, because everybody needs to learn how to manage conflict.
100%. Excuse me. What's the best business advice anybody's ever given you?
Mm, that's a great question. I think it's continue showing up. Even you have to be so resilient to be a small business owner because you get so many no's. You have to keep showing up, recognize that those no's aren't necessarily about you. There may be something about you that they are about, but if you've got a product that you know can help people, you've got to keep showing up and keep talking to people about it, because eventually it's going to break open.
Yeah. Somebody told me this a long, long time ago. Every no gets you to the next yes. So
Mm-hmm.
you have to have people say no to you a few times before you're going to get a yes.
Yeah.
So
And it's even
to,
more than a few times, isn't it, Joe? I mean,
it
sometimes it's
is.
like 100 no's to everyone yes, which gets to be
Yeah,
exhausting, but you
it
just
can.
have to keep figuring that out.
Yeah, you have to put it in perspective. So to take that a little bit further, if you ran into somebody or you're talking to someone who was either thinking about starting a business and they were having trouble getting over the hump to start it, or maybe they were a year or two in and they were struggling, what kind of advice would you give them?
Yeah, you don't have to figure it out on your own. I think, like you've got to find those networking groups that have your people in them. And when I say your people
Right.
in them, it's not necessarily people who do what you do, but it's those people that you feel good being around, those people who will tell you when you're doing something wrong, and those people who will lift you up when you're doing the right things. And those people who, when you've got a quick question, you can just email the group, or you can ask in the next meeting what you would be embarrassed to ask anybody else because you feel like you should already know it, but they've got answers. So you just have to find a networking group with your people,
Yeah.
and get an accountability partner. I currently have 3 accountability partners for different parts of my business, which is terrific. I've got somebody that he's writing a book and I'm writing a book, so we meet every month, and
Yeah.
we tell each other what our goals are for the next month, and then we hold each other accountable for that. So I think finding those individuals and finding those groups is so important.
Yeah, I would agree. Accountability is critical. Whether you own your own business or whether you're just in the corporate world, accountability
Mhm.
is critical. So, Laura, I really appreciate you taking part in my interview series today. It was really great learning more about listening to change. If anybody out there wants to get a hold of you to learn more, how would they do that?
That is a great question. And remember, my VA is now currently working on my website. So my website is in the process of being redone. But you can contact me first and primarily through LinkedIn. And then just connect with me on LinkedIn, say that you listen to this podcast, and I will accept you right away. And the second would be the website. And the website's address is www.listeningtochange with a TO in the middle, listeningtochange.com. So
Okay,
those are
great.
two of the best ways.
Great. Well, once again, thank you very much for taking part, and for everybody out there listening, thanks for being a part of another episode of Mastering the Numbers.
My
Take care.
pleasure. Thanks, Joe. Bye-bye.
All right, bye. You've just tuned into another episode of Mastering the Numbers. We hope you found valuable insight to boost your financial success. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite platform and leave us a review. Keep pushing forward, and thanks for listening.